The Skywalker saga is over, so now what? That is discussed with my co-pilot John Hoey from the Resistance broadcast as we discuss the future of Star Wars. All this and more on Postcards from the Galaxy's Edge. What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new episode for 2020 of Postcards from the Galaxy's Edge, and today my co-host and co-pilot is John Hoey from Resistance Broadcast. How are you tonight?
Shannon, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I am always excited to talk about Star Wars, and it's refreshing to be on other shows where where you're the one writing the show notes, and I don't have to do the show notes.
Yeah, I am curious what your show notes would be like. Mine are very short and kind of bullet points.
I remember I told you, I was like, I loved your show notes when I saw them, because sometimes I'll get show notes and they'll be like 20 pages, and I'm like, oh, what is going on?
I don't even know how you could do 20 pages.
I think it was like the entire novel of Great Gatsby one time, I swear. But no, when I saw it, I loved it. I was like, wow, they're all there. It's very succinct, put to the point, and it was great. So I'm glad to be here. Very excited. So thank you.
Awesome. And so for people who may not know, kind of where are you kind of in the Star Wars fandom? Like, what's your presence?
Oh, hanging on by a thread, I tell you. No. So I'm the lead editor and senior writer at a website called StarWarsNewsNet.com. It's a fan website, not affiliated with Lucasfilm or Disney, but we do, all your Star Wars news, reviews, editorials, and all that sort of thing. And I'm a co-host on the podcast for Star Wars Newsnet called The Resistance Broadcast, which is on all your podcast formats and YouTube and that sort of thing. And yeah, that's where I'm at.
Great. And how did you kind of get involved with like Star Wars Newsnet?
So I was always writing as a part-time gig, because I do publishing work as well. And I was writing for fantasy sports websites, which is obviously a big industry, and I was doing just some part-time gigs there, and I got fired from this one website for just not doing sports stat analytics the way they wanted me to do it. And they were like, you know what, we'll just get someone to do this without paying them. And I was like, oh, all right, wow. Fair enough. So there was a guy who was writing for Star Wars News at the time who was following me for my sports writing, to his dismay, I guess. And I had asked him, I was like, do you guys, want contributors or whatever? And I got in touch with Val, who owns the site, and he had me do some test runs. And he's like, all right, I'm going to throw you to the wolves, and you're going to cover Celebration Satellite, not at Celebration, but you're going to cover it live for us and do those sorts of things. And I passed that test. And then I just kept saying, yes, whatever he needed. And I've been there ever since. So we're coming up on 3 years now.
Nice.
And then I guested on the podcast one time. The host at the time, Pat Covey, had me on, and that was like a 3.5 hour podcast, which is insane. And then we kind of rebooted it a couple months later, and it turned into what it is today. And it was me and James and Bill at the time, and then Lacey came on board in 2018, and then here we are.
Brilliant. Nice. Yeah, when I was having my episode with Lacey, it's funny because I was part of the Star Wars Newsnet Cantina from like 2016, but I didn't really listen to the podcast until about February of last year, and I vividly remember the episode because it was talking about the Vader fan film. And what I liked, actually, and no disrespect to Star Wars Theory, but what I liked was you were like one of the few that were actually like you were critical but like constructive about it. You weren't just like, oh my god, Lucasfilm, take note, like you actually you're like yeah. And I was like, oh, I like this, and I really loved the kind of chemistry that you guys had, because a lot of and it's just fact, it's nothing wrong with it, but it was nice also that it was kind of a nice mixture of male and female, but then it wasn't felt shoehorned, like it's just a natural good vibe. And then wow. And then graciously got to meet you guys at Celebration, unfortunately very briefly, because I wasn't able to come back. I went to go see the lightsabers at like the Bean, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I can't get back to the bar, but was there at the live panel, so that was very exciting and definitely highlight of the Saturday.
I appreciate everything you just said. We do try to just it's three friends, it's genuine chemistry, and James and Lacey make it that way just because we're all very honest with each other. And I think we established a friendship where we can yell at each other and disagree with each other, but it's earnest. It's not to like make a show out of it or anything like that. And we have fun with it. But thank you again for also taking time out of your celebration to come to our panel, because there's so much at Celebration. Like it was my first Celebration. It's crazy how much you can do at Celebration. So thank you for taking the time and coming. That meant a lot, really.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and like, cause I had only been to Celebration once, which was London, and I'd only gone to like one day. And then of course going to Chicago, because coming from the UK, it was like, okay, I'm going to be there for the whole duration. But it was definitely, I think, one of the best weekends of my life. And that sounds so dramatic, but it's so true. And just, it was nice because, again, kind of going into that vein of positivity, it was nice to be around in that Star Wars bubble, but everyone was excited. You can't tell me, I don't know how many people were there, like 50,000 people or whoever, I'm just picked a number randomly, but you can't tell me that all of them were like the Last Jedi lovers and things like that. There definitely had to be, and it was just nice. We were just excited for Star Wars. I mean, I still tear up watching reactions from when the first trailer dropped for the Rise of Skywalker, because that at its peak was just like pure excitement and energy. Sadly, we don't have that again right now, but hopefully we will get that back.
I agree. That moment was kind of like one of those things where you watch the clip and you're like, oh my God, I'm watching footage from a new Star Wars movie. And that's always special no matter what the situation is. I think even for the Last Jedi fans, it's sometimes like if you're a gambler and you're like, well, on this round I'm gonna hit, and you watch it and you're like, okay, come on, and you hear the cackle and everyone's pumped about it, and then it comes out and everyone gets mad again, and we recycle and go through it again. But I agree, Celebration, I think I could be wrong. I just think it's one of those things where even if you're maybe a negative person online, because your instinct is, well, let me just unload all my frustrations with life onto this person and their comments. You don't do that in person. Like, you're not gonna someone's gonna be at Star Wars Celebration eating a sandwich at the bar and talking about how much they like The Last Jedi. Someone's not gonna run up to them and be like, you're an idiot. Like, that's just not gonna happen.
No,
so
it really
I think
isn't.
just getting everyone together in that place alone makes it a more positive thing. And I think, what was it, 120,000?
It might have been. I literally just picked a number. I know it was a lot. It was funny because even my dad, because me and my mom were in like the Galaxy stage, kind of, the streaming stage.
Yes,
and my dad was actually at the food court because like we only had 2 badges, so we, sorry, food pop, kind of swapped him out. But he said he just all of a sudden he heard this cheering and he was just like, what is that? And he didn't realize that's obviously the reveal of the title for The Rise of Skywalker. And things like that, which I'll be honest, I've never been a fan of the title. It's funny, in my trailer reaction, you hear me going, what's it called? And then you hear nothing.
Hey, you know what's funny? You're right about that. I think I just cheered just because I saw a title, because everyone was constantly talking about when's the title coming out? When they release the title? So I think it was more that relief. But James Bainey on our podcast brought up a good point. He's like, why couldn't they have just called it Rise of Skywalker? Why'd they have to put the in the front?
Oh, I know.
Also, all 3 movies have the on the front. And ever since he said that, like, the glass shattered, and now every time I see it, I'm like, the Rise of Skywalker. It's like, it's heavy off my tongue, but
it is.
If that's not a nitpick, but yeah.
Now, one thing, of course, we have to talk about is kind of also talking about positivity, and just a movement that worked in such a positive way is, of course, the Make Solo 2 campaign. I'll let you kind of give a little bit of a backstory and kind of where it is today and things like that.
Okay, like how it came about, you mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Okay, so when Solo came out, I loved it. And it was funny going in, I didn't think I was going to love it because I'm such a Harrison Ford fan. So I thought it was going to be like, no one could be Han Solo. I don't accept it. And then it came out. I was charmed to death by what Alden did, by what Ron Howard got out of him, and obviously Jonas and everyone, Aaron Kellyman, the whole cast and crew. I thought they did such a great job with that movie. It felt really Star Wars to me. And then it obviously didn't do very well. So I wanted to like kind of root for it. I felt like we had a first Star Wars movie that was an underdog since the original. It had that kind of like underdog, I need your help type of charm that when the Blu-ray came out, I was like, James, wouldn't it be funny if we made a t-shirt that said "Make Solo 2 happen," because it's so outrageous that they would do it because it didn't do well. Almost like a tongue-in-cheek sort of thing. So he came up with the logo, and I was like, oh, that's great. And then we made the t-shirts, and I wore it to New York Comic-Con. And like so many people were like, yeah, high fives, like 99% of the people. And then there was one guy like, he just looks at me, and maybe I'm wrong about what I said at Celebration, because he just comes up to me and he goes, man, that shirt is stupid. You know? And I was like, all right, well, 99 out of 100 liked it. And then fast forward to, I would pepper in hashtag Make Solo 2 happen in my tweets and stuff. But then Celebration came, and all three of us wore our shirts, and other fans of ours wore shirts to like photos with Jonas and, Aaron Kellyman and the producer Rob Brito, and Brian Herring came up to me and James, and we didn't realize it was him, and he had to take a picture of it. And he walked away. He's like, by the way, I'm Brian Herring. I was like, oh my God, that's the guy. And then of course, Ron Howard quote tweeted it, and John Kasdan that during Celebration said, I have stories to tell. So then we were like, we got something here. Like the people are getting behind this sort of thing. So we made the Make Solo 2 Happen Day, which was around the anniversary of the movie's release in theaters. And we just said, yeah, this day, hashtag if you want to say how much you like the movie or how much you'd like to see more stories, because that movie definitely left it open for, go tell them what they did with Jabba and Enfys Nest starting the rebellion, Maul and Kira. There's so many stories you can tell. It's just set up. It's right there for them to do it. They have the digital assets. You know about that.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah, I don't have to tell you about that. You tell me about that. And then that morning I woke up and James is like, and Lacey, they're like, there's already like 1,000 tweets and it's taken off. And I'm like, oh my God, I better put the episode out. And it wound up being a monumental thing that we didn't even plan for, because I think people just took it as a positive thing. It wasn't a petition. It wasn't a demand. It was, we love Solo, make Solo 2 happen because we love it, but you don't have to do it. So it wound up trending worldwide and domestically, and it has a Wikipedia entry and all down the line, and everyone involved has talked about it, acknowledged it as much as they can. I think they may have had to tighten the lip a little bit.
Yeah. That might be a sign.
So it might be. So we're gonna, keep it going, and we may try to have some plans for this coming celebration. But we just urge people, anytime you think of it and like want more Solo, or think about how much you love Solo, drop that hashtag in and keep it going, because I feel like it's part of the language now. And I think what I'm most proud of is that day, at least, Star Wars fandom was positive. It was united, and I didn't hear any insults about it, and that's a rare thing. So if anything, I'll take May 23rd, 2019 and put my hat on it. You know?
No, it was awesome, because I remember, because I was already going to do a live stream that night. And then it was already trending by like 7 a.m. UK time. So Lord knows what that was your time. It wasn't even the next day. So it was like and so that's why, like, I remember, I think I screenshot it and sent it to you guys. I was like, it was trending in the UK before you guys even woke up. And so I was like, oh, this is big. Because I was like you.
Wow.
I was like, oh, maybe it's going to be, or I was like, or it'll trend in the USA. But I mean, I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, I'm going to, because it's funny. I hand on heart, I didn't like Solo the first time. Or it's not that I didn't like it. I was like, okay, it felt very fan servicey kind of thing. But I definitely was like, do you know what, knowing kind of the behind the scenes stuff, because I think unfortunately in this kind of microcosm that we're in now, we hear about all the behind the scenes woes, and of course we can trailer analyze frame by frame. I'm very guilty of that. It's almost sometimes the things are ruined before you even get into the cinema and get to enjoy it. But what I did like was, I obviously definitely loved the Han and Chewie aspect, but it just, at first, it wasn't one of my favorites. But my better half, who hated The Last Jedi, but I loved The Last Jedi, I was like, okay, you're gonna like this. Right. I was starting to kind of see a pattern, and I saw that continuing pattern with Last Jedi to like Tros, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But but this movement, and you guys talking about it, and just kind of stepping away and like analyzing, and I really got on board. And even I was like, do you know what? I'm going to change my live stream. So I changed the planet. I was like, all right, we're going to Kessel. I made it Make Solo 2 stream and everything.
That's awesome.
I just literally talked about the film and talked about how I'm a convert and things.
Wow.
But
that's so cool.
Yeah.
I think because I'm also like, I am a like unabashed like no shame whatsoever, huge Lawrence Kasdan fan. And the fact that they brought him back to write that with his son was a big thing for me. And you just feel like he just knows how to write Han Solo, ever since The Empire Strikes Back. So everything about that movie just charms the hell out of me. And I know for some people it doesn't, but I feel like you said, like you're a convert. I feel like some people who didn't give it a shot have come around so much later that it's starting to pick up slow steam with fans. Yeah. And I hope that they're paying attention to that, because like I say, now that you have Disney Plus,
oh yes,
you can do 10 episodes where you do 2 with Enfys Nest, Han and Chewie over here with Jabba. You have Crimson Dawn with Kira and Maul, and Ray Park's always down to put the makeup back on.
Oh yes.
You can get Boba Fett in there, which fans have always wanted. Like, you can do so much with what they set up, and they left enough years in between where they can do a season 2 if they wanted. And you can probably talk about how important already having the digital assets are for productions for those types of things, because I was talking to friends who also work in the industry, and they're like, that's why they're doing the Cassian thing, because they have the Rogue One assets, and that's why they're doing this, because they have these assets or these sets and that sort of thing. So everything points to it making sense, and now they're doing a Willow sequel, so why not a Solo sequel?
Exactly. Why not?
No shame to Willow. I love Willow, but
absolutely. Well, heck, I mean, I'm guilty, and we'll transition into your Canon planet in just a moment. But I mean, heck, I worked on Dark Crystal, and I mean, if Dark Crystal, which was like a cult classic before I was even born, barely, but before I was even born, it's like, because I think it came out in what, 82?
I think like around there, like 82, 83, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm a late 84, so I was like, hey, so I mean, it's there, and that nostalgia also is very much big, and again, but that will get into our main conversation. But first, for those of you who are first checking this out, this is Postcards from the Galaxy's Edge. Either it's usually a live stream or a podcast, and what happens is each broadcast comes from a Canon planet, and so today's Canon planet is Pasaana. And why did we choose Pasaana today?
All right, so we chose Pasaana because I thought it would be interesting to pick a Rise of Skywalker planet, because I knew that we'd be recording after the movie came out, because you and I had planned this a few months ago, right?
Yeah, it was like November. I'm
peeling back the curtain on your show. I'm sorry.
That's all right. No, it's okay.
You're like, I just called John just now, and he came on, and here we go. And,
I got you on speed dial.
There you go. No, and I was like, all right, well, let's pick one of the new planets, and I saw Pasaana. I knew that was a big desert thing, and we saw Rey in the trailer flipping over the TIE fighter, and I was like, that'd be cool. But then, having seen the movie now, you have C-3PO saying that the celebration happens once every 42 years. It's a nod to 42 years of Star Wars, and I'm all about celebrating Star Wars, and it looked like it was a party on Pasaana, so works for me.
Maybe we'll kind of talk about the shooting locale and things, because obviously it was shot in the Wadi Rum, which also, spoiler, kind of was where Jeddah was shot. And I think it's funny, a lot of us kind of with the Speculation Nation, which again, that's one of yours, basically it was like, oh, does that mean they're in Jeddah? And things like that.
Yeah.
Which I think that would have been kind of cool to kind of tie it in. But I also, what I was kind of seeing with like Solo and things is sometimes I'm one of those people that it's tricky, and I think it's not, we kind of got used to this with the prequels, that everything it's an almost kind of small universe, because if you think about it, it was like, oh, Jango Fett is Boba Fett's dad, but is also the kind of father to all the clones, and it just got a really small, so I was actually kind of glad in the end it was its own thing, and I like the Aki, and that was quite cool, and things like that, and of course our main man Lando was there, I love it. Was he just kind of chilling there after him and Luke like separated ways? Like
he's like, I'm too old. I'm staying here forever. Yeah. I'm gonna wear this outfit that reminds people of the Skiff Guard stuff and so on. But I thought that whole scene was like kind of sweet and charming in a way. Like Chewie, keep your head down, and Chewie ducks down and starts walking.
I laughed so hard, and it made me think also because he does that in Galaxy's Edge as almost like a little bit of an Easter egg. Because when he's when he's hiding in Galaxy's Edge, he crouches like that.
Oh,
so
wow.
I had just like seen him do that, so I was really like giggling and smiling when I saw that. That was a great moment.
Do they still have that whack Chewie costume though?
It's funny. In America, it's better. But I'm actually going to the last in Disneyland Paris. They have something called Seasons of the Force. Do not ask me to say it in French because I do not speak French. I speak Spanish, so I can't even try it for its pronunciation. But the Chewbacca costume in France looks a bit funny. So you'll see pictures in March if we get to meet Chewie. But yeah, it's a little. It looks more like the Episode 3 Wookiees. You know, they were a bit fluffier.
Yeah, I don't like how Chewie looked in Episode 3.
Yeah, he was very fluffy. But then the one in Solo, like I'm sorry, he got hit with the ugly stick.
You think so?
Oh, the one that like not Chewbacca. The other one
was like the hungry one. Yeah, he looks just the starved Wookiee. Yeah,
maybe that's what it was because he was malnourished. But yeah, he definitely looked like he got hit with the ugly stick.
I was like, Shannon, we're about to go to blows here.
Oh no, sorry, not Chewie. No, not main man Chewie.
The one at Disney is not good either. Here, it's definitely not the like movie one because when I was at the premiere, they had the one from Pinewood Studios, and you got to like whoever was in the suit. Of course, it wasn't Jonas Sotomo, but you got to like hang out and take pictures with that, and it was like the actual one. And I'm like, why isn't that at Disney World? And they're like, well, that's a very expensive costume, and people are constantly touching Chewie, and I'm like, okay, I kind of get it.
And probably the heat. Like, I'm especially thinking, I mean, it might be the same in California, but at least because I went to Batu East. I love like there's an East and a West.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. I think I got that from James. I don't know. Maybe or Twitter. I don't know, but yeah, there's a Batu.
He's been there, yeah.
Or maybe it was, you had her on your second episode of Anakin's Angel. Oh, what's her name? Jen
Marie?
Yeah, I think because she obviously does a lot of with her.
Oh, she's always there, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think maybe she's the one who used the terminology Batu East, West. I don't know. But anyway, I also think of the heat. Like, that's why also, because some people sometimes criticize the Kylo Ren costume not being, like, the 501st ones are better. I'm like, well, guys, it is. I mean, come on. I went in December and it was 80 degrees in December. Like,
sure. Yeah. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Like sometimes I have my little Darth Vader mask here.
Yeah.
That I film like quick little dumb videos just to put on Twitter. And like after 2 minutes, it's fogged up and I'm in a climate controlled room here in my house and I'm still like, oh my God, I'm dying. So yeah, I get it.
Back to the Pasaana thing. A little bit of a hot take here. See what you think. I love the little puppet show and them showing the little kid Akis and things. How would you feel if instead of it, because it looked like it was a puppet show kind of talking about them burning like the paper and the kites of the festival, if it was like the telling of Luke Skywalker on Crate?
Oh, I mean, that would be unbelievable. I mean, I'd be down with that because I am fine. I've come to terms with, like you say, Star Wars being small, because they talk about it that it's a galaxy, but really you're jumping from town to town, the way they move around in the galaxy. So it's, say, being in a country to me as opposed to being in a galaxy. Like, you want to get to another planet, you'll be there in 3 minutes. Just like, if I want to head down the road to go get a deli in the next town over.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with that if they did that. That would make sense to me. I mean, I didn't even really notice what they were doing. I was just like, oh, it's just a couple of kids doing the thing, and Rey's looking at kids and wondering what it would be like to be a child without the burden of being, this powerful being, So
yeah, great. I'm glad you got that. I'm glad you got that too, because like some people were like, oh, I didn't understand the point of that scene. I'm like, that's because Rey's looking at these children going, I kind of wish I got to be a child. 'Cause she never got to be a child. Like,
right.
I mean, we're still kind of learning her backstories and bits and drabs, but like, she got sold,
right?
Quote, to Unkar Plutt. And she's, I mean, what, 5, 6? I people in the comments will probably be like, oh, she was this ABY and blah, 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 blah. But
yeah, I believe she was like 5. Yeah,
I mean, she was
that.
little. So, I mean, that's no life. So, I mean, I thought that was a great little moment kind of thing. But
yeah, she had to be self-serving, self-trained and grow up real fast. And then when she had the exchange with the one kid about what's her last name, and she asks Rey, and she says it's just Rey, and you're like, oh, Rey.
I know. Which, another hot take, I kind of was slightly hoping she'd end it saying I'm Rey, just Rey, but
at the end of the movie,
yeah,
I liked the honoring of Skywalker.
I respectfully understand that too, where it's like, you can't really have it be called The Rise of Skywalker and her go, I'm Rey, just Rey. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's like,
Although some people say that The Rise of Skywalker was Kylo Ren literally rising up out of the pit and saving Rey. So there's, I guess, multiple ways of calling, because he is a Skywalker.
exactly.
Yeah, which some people for some reason can't understand, that there's marriage names and that you're still a part of a family. But you know, whatever. I'm not gonna, you can't hold hands forever and drag people along. You gotta sometimes let them go.
Exactly. Just like, fair enough. Okay.
Yes, yeah, but yeah, so I see the multiple meanings there, and I like the whole idea of, because some people who like, which I didn't even connect with, they're like, well, I was adopted, and I was left, or I was an orphan, and then I was adopted by this family, and that's my name now. And I don't know that that's been really explored that much in Star Wars, where you come from somewhere that you are not proud of, or that's not a good place, and you're able to become a part of this other family, and that's her way of honoring them. So I dig that for reasons that I can't personally relate to, but it's a way to add another element of representation in Star Wars. Maybe people who were adopted or orphaned or came into something better thanks to good people.
Exactly. And that's why, actually, because as you know, like with me and Lacey's episode, I'm a very big fan of Rey. And actually, I think that's why, like, that was the hardest part the first time seeing The Rise of Skywalker, was the big reveal of,
Sure.
oh, no, you aren't nobody. You're a Palpatine. And definitely
Right.
pulling up from a certain point of view kind
Right.
of spin on it. And it really was like, man, I just came to peace with her being a nobody. Because I was like Team Kenobi and all. I was trapped in that whole, like, having your own speculations and what you want and everything. So I really tried hard not going into The Rise of Skywalker with this.
Right.
All I wanted was, please don't be a clone and don't be an immaculate conception. That's all I wanted. And I luckily got that. But I just remember kind of being like, wait, what? So she is somebody? And at first I was like, well, just make up your mind. But then kind of hearing people, like you said, going, well, I was like, do you know what? Okay, cool. I'm at peace with that, because I'm so happy someone can really identify with that. And again, it makes the Rey character quite strong. So I was like, fair enough. And so again, I've kind of, stopped. As we say in England, I didn't get your back up. So it's like, okay, back down a little bit, get your back up kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a way of kind of saying, you're getting protective, or you get your back up. But
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, so I kind of backed off. I was like, okay, yeah, fair enough. Okay.
And it does, it smacks down the Mary Sue argument for sure.
It does. So, I mean, and so that will dovetail into our main discussion of kind of what is the future of Star Wars now, because the Skywalker saga is over. And that's the other thing that I kind of did, was like, when I was very gutted. I was disappointed. Sorry, there'll be some British terms coming out here.
No.
Where I came out of The Force Awakens so pumped. I was like, this is what the prequel should have been. That energy, that's exciting. Came out of The Last Jedi. I remember turning to one of my best buddies. We went on my birthday, and I said, I loved it. And they're like, we hated it. And I was like, oh God, okay. And that's when I was like, okay. But as I was hoping to at least get that energy out of this. And so when I came out the first time, very conflicted, I was like, oh, this is what the Last Jedi people felt. That felt conflicted. I was like, okay, I feel you. I see what you're feeling now. But then I was like, do you know what? And I promise I'll get off my soapbox here. I was like, this is the last time we are getting a Skywalker saga film, for the while, at least, in the cinema. Just enjoy it. So it's like, okay, so I went a second time, and I was like, do you know what? Just, what happens now? Just enjoy it. And I had an epiphany that I really started liking it second, third kind of time. That I was like, okay. Yeah, I'm at peace with this kind of thing. There's still, but then when I go start talking to people and like analyzing it, then I'm like, oh God, I'm starting to, but yeah.
And you know what? That's okay. I mean, there's it's not like I feel like there's this whole thing now where it's like you either have to love it or hate it. Whereas, it's okay to be like, yeah, it was okay.
Yeah. And that was the thing. I mean, I didn't walk out like Attack of the Clones, where I was like, what is this stinking piling of oof?
Yeah, I still, I know it's the prequel redemption arc now, but I still don't like Attack of the Clones. We just did our commentary for it.
I know, I gotta check it out.
Patreon. And I was like, let's make sure we don't roast this movie. Like, let's point out things we do like. Like, George Lucas is a wonderful storyteller. He may not be good with dialogue, but the man can write a story.
Yeah.
And that's there. It's in Attack of the Clones. But the dialogue and the romance stuff is really brutal. It is. But if you get past that, like, that's the thing. Sometimes in Star Wars, you just have to look past some things.
Yes.
Because the original movie was supposed to just be some kind of ripoff of like Buck Rogers.
Exactly.
And, like, Flash Gordon and very hokey stuff. So I think we've gotten to a point where some people are looking for like art house now because Rian Johnson made a very artsy Star Wars film where Star Wars was always just a swashbuckling adventure. I just made up a new word.
There you go.
And I think when I go into it with that lens, I always just look past things I may not like. Like, I didn't love Palpatine coming back or her being a Palpatine, but I got over it quick, and I didn't want it to hurt me because, like you just said, this is the last rodeo here for the Skywalkers. I mean, even if they bring back Rey and company, which I think they will one day, someone's going to come dig up those lightsabers and cause some problems. But this is it, like, for Luke, Han, and Leia and stuff, and I'll be damned if I was going to let some little nitpicks I have ruin that for me. Now, I do know people have major problems with the movie, and I get that, so I try to, like, let them have their time, but just try not to ruin other people's enjoyment, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. That's my thing. It's like, I am all respectful. There's a guy I went to see The Last Jedi with that we now work together. It's just like, he's still on it. And I'm like, I just respectfully go, I get it.
Yeah.
It's like, just don't affect other people's experiences. Or I don't like the name calling. Don't go, well, you're not a true fan, or, oh, let's not get started on that. Sure. We won't go down that rabbit hole, but you know what I mean? Right. Where it's just like, if you don't like it, great, completely respect you kind of thing. But it's like, yeah.
Or like, let me explain to you why you're not understanding why it's a bad movie or something. Like, no, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So now that the Skywalker saga is kind of wrapped up, we now have, like you kind of mentioned up top with Solo and things, we have this opportunity. And I think right now it's a very exciting time because also, especially kind of coming from a visual effects point of view as well, we have the streaming wars because everything now is the streaming services like Netflix. We saw with like Dark Crystal and The Crown and some other shows that you can get some really great quality. I mean, heck, we have Oscar nominated stuff that's been on Netflix. And I know it's a bit of a debate, and I know this isn't a movie podcast, but it's one of those. But it's not kind of this just TV, because it's never been like this in England. But in America, I know when I was first starting off in the industry, there was very much a divide of, these actors, that's just a TV actor, or that's a film actor. Like, that is kind of starting to blur thanks to shows on HBO and Netflix and things. So I'm with you. And also, I feel, see what you think, we also consume storytelling differently now. Like, we want more. Because, like, with Game of Thrones, I felt that really kicked open that episodic character development that now when we see things in a film in 2 hours, we're like, we didn't know about Snoke. We didn't know about this because we now consume storytelling very differently as a society. Would you agree?
I think that's a good point. I really do, because I find now more than ever, people feel they need the explanation in the frames that they're watching. Not, let me put pieces together using my imagination, or let me find out via a book or something down the line. Like, no, you need to have explained this to me or it doesn't work. No one cared where Yoda came from. No one cared about where Darth Vader came from until it was revealed that he was Anakin's father. Like, no one cared about origin stories until the prequels came out, I feel like. Yeah. I don't even know that the word prequel existed before the Star Wars prequels, and backstories, and like, look at Black Widow now. Like, let's just keep going back and making movies that tell these backstories that we may or may not need. But I think it's just that it's another part of the culture now. Like, everyone just needs everything explained. Like, why didn't we know it? They went to Mustafar at the beginning of the Rise of Skywalker. It's like, well, now you know. Does it change anything?
Yeah.
No. There you go. Like, Rogue One labeled the planets, and I don't know if I like that. I'm like, I don't need you to label it. It kind of takes me out of the, Star Wars doesn't have opening credits. I don't need you to be labeling now starring, Edu. So I don't know, but I agree with you about how they absorb storytelling. Game of Thrones is a good example, and then like you say with the actors, like James Gandolfini with Sopranos. I think that was a big one that started like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And then now, Disney Plus with the like you bring up the digital effects that Favreau's doing with this whole volume room thing. Like you may not need to go to Wadi Rum anymore. Because he could bring it to, and then, Clayton Sandell from ABC News came on our podcast and he said he visited with his friends at ILM. And he said one of the guys who was working on The Mandalorian was in the room and he thought there were tangible objects in the room. And then they shut off the volume background and those things vanished. And the guy was literally in the room and thought these objects were there.
Yeah.
Now imagine that being him being fooled in the room, let alone an audience at home watching the final product. So you're right. Like they have changed the game and they could do so much because of it.
Yeah. Well, this is why, like, I was just doing kind of a Patreon exclusive talking about The Mandalorian. What I don't know if a lot of people know that Jon Favreau was doing The Lion King and The Mandalorian at the same time. So because of the time change, because The Lion King was being done exclusively in London, it's quite rare for visual effects, but to have something called a sole vendor where one company is working on something. But sometimes it makes it easier, but it makes it a 2.5-year project. Mm-hmm. So he literally, what would be his morning, so our evening, would be in the land of Lion King, which we're talking full digital creatures, virtual production, using the VR, everything. Only to then in the afternoon go to The Mandalorian where everything is practical. Even what you just described, especially in the cockpits. Now, this is just up top because, yes, I do work in visual effects. Don't work at ILM. This is a bit speculation, so I'm not breaking any, NDA rules here. But from what I understand, and they got this from Solo, having those big screens in front of the cockpits, Gravity also did this. It helps with creating light, especially with the Mandalorian with his reflective armor.
Right.
Replicating light is very difficult, and to do it, it's easier when it's a digital thing because then everything's controlled, i.e. the Lion King, whereas in the Mandalorian, by having that, you're able to control it in a more natural setting because that's why sometimes visual effects look so bad, but to the common person and they don't know why, it's because it's the lighting and the texturing, and it's because it's so difficult. So that's what I love is like the Mandalorian had all this practical kind of screens and things. So all those cockpit scenes, when you saw a ship fly by, I'm guessing, if I'm understanding right, if they use the same kind of technology as Solo, that really happened. Because some of the actors even talked about it, like the lava and things where they were like, it was there.
That has to help them not only from a just make it organic in terms like you're saying with the lighting, but also just acting in general.
Yes. Well, this is why I also am so excited that there's kind of like this new revolution of puppetry again. Mm-hmm. I mean, it started obviously, the Dark Crystal really just kind of kicked that door open, but then having Babu Frick, learning that Maz Kanata was not fully CG, like even that fooled me. I was like, wait, what? Having Baby Yoda obviously is a puppet, but it works. Like, because it was funny. There was someone much younger working on the Dark Crystal, and they said, "Oh, this would be great if this was digital. I don't like the puppetry." And it's like, no, you don't understand. Like, it's something tangible. And again, the way light hits things just makes things seem more realistic, kind of thing. So it's a very exciting time, and I'm very interested to see like what's going to happen with Cassian. And it's weird. I don't know if you know this, and I'm not asking for any exclusives or anything, but it's weird. We heard about Cassian, but then it just kind of petered off. But now we're hearing more about Obi-Wan. It's like, I'm wondering, what are we getting next? Like,
yeah. So the reports a while back were that Cassian was supposed to start filming this past fall, right? That was all the reports from all the big trades and everything. Cassian's going to start filming this fall. And then like 2 months ago, they're like, well, we're bringing in Tony Gilroy, and he's the guy who gutted Rogue One and did the reshoots, gave you your Vader scene at the end, and killed off all the characters as opposed to them sneaking away. And they really changed the whole third act of that movie, I think, in a big way. And, he did not mince words when he was talking about it. He's like, I don't like Star Wars. This is rubbish to me. I came in, I did my job, and blah, blah, blah. they liked him enough to bring him back in, and he's now allegedly, reportedly, like the Hollywood Reporter saying anyway, rewriting the pilot and stuff. Now, I've heard from people he's been involved the whole time, and this was just kind of because they're massively delayed in production. They're just kind of putting it out there that he's coming in so that, oh, something's changing. This is why they're delayed. I've heard he's been involved the whole time. I don't know, but if they're saying now they're gonna start filming this in the summer, this thing's getting punted a lot, and I'm scratching my head until we get roll on production with this thing. I'm starting to have my doubts a little bit on the Cassian Andor series, so I'm not really sure. But Kenobi seems like it is in a great spot finally. You have Deborah Chow, who everyone loves from The Mandalorian, right?
So excited about
doing the whole thing, so it's gonna have her whole style. I like that. I wouldn't be surprised if she becomes a big name for a movie, especially if Kenobi becomes successful. But I think the future of Star Wars, like you're saying, they may keep familiarity on Disney Plus and mix in some new stuff. Because while The Mandalorian is new, it's pretty much like, I don't want to say store brand Empire Strikes Back Bounty Hunters, but it's like you have IG-11 instead of IG-88. You have The Mandalorian instead of Boba Fett, and all Forlam and all that stuff that looks familiar. And you have your Trandoshans like Bosk, but it's not Bosk, and all down the line. Because I think they did, and at the time, they had plans to do a Boba Fett movie still when Favreau was trying to pitch that thing. So, so you're going to get that. You're going to get Obi-Wan Kenobi. I hope a Solo one day. And then maybe with the movies, they can start a new saga and try that out and see what that works. And if that doesn't work the way they want it to work with maybe a Marvel model, they always have Old Faithful in the pocket, which is bring back the crew that works now. Falcon, Chewie, R2, and all of them, and bring them all back. So they could always go back to that. So they can take more risks, I think, from the film perspective.
Yeah. What do you think of these kind of this like High Republic, and now it seems like that's kind of hinted that Project Luminous is kind of, I could be wrong, so you're in this vein a bit better than I am, that Project Luminous is kind of kicking off the whole like High Republic thing. Like that's kind of the speculation, where it's like it's helping set up, and they've brought these great kind of writers and things from various forms. So you got books, comics, some of the like all stars of the different mixed medias. To kind of start this new, like almost like jump for like jump start for Star Wars, and then it's going. Am I mixing that up, or is that kind of okay?
I mean, that's the report anyway. I mean, you have to take it as a rumor now because Lucasfilm hasn't put anything out. But it's almost like they're trying to do something different, knowing that the crutch of the Skywalker saga and the nostalgia of our old heroes is gone for now.
Yes.
So if you're going to start fresh, you might as well try a different approach. And maybe they see, Marvel was rooted in all these comic books and these games, and they're able to reach an international audience, which love video games and all those sorts of things. Star Wars has not tapped into the international market, especially Asia. So if you can get into video games, which is they're saying the first thing they want to launch out of this project, according to this report by that Hungarian site, is a video game. Do you attract new young kids to be the new future of Star Wars fans, and then say, well, then we're going to add movies on top of it, and that's how you build up that audience that Star Wars has been lacking for so long? Because Star Wars got it got off to a late start because I don't think it hit like the Asian markets till like the 90s, and I'm talking about like the original movies, right? So I think that might be their planet. So if it's true, which who knows, that would make sense to me. Now, Old Republic, I mean, I don't know. Last March, I had a source who had worked on every Star Wars movie in the post George Lucas era. I don't like calling it the Disney era because people consider that a stigma. So
yeah, exactly.
Like the modern era of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And he said that the next project is going to start within the next year. It's going to be 400 years before the prequels. It's going to be Old Republic. It's going to be the Jedi. It's Benioff and Weiss. I'm like, okay. So I ran a report as a rumor, and people were like, you're full of it. You're just guessing, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, nope, I'm not. And then they leave, and it's different people coming in the chair, but it looks like they're keeping with this era. So whoever comes in to direct or write, it's Star Wars saying, we're doing this era. You have to be cool with coming in and doing it. So I don't know who they're going to get on board. Do you have any guesses or who you'd like to see or
Oh,
anything
see,
like that?
I don't know, because like I will be honest, I was a late. My better half calls me a tourist when it comes to Game of Thrones, because I've only seen like the important episodes and like the last 2 seasons, and it drives her nuts. She's like, she's such a tourist, you know? Because it's funny. Like I just celebrated. I don't know if celebrating, but I've been living in the UK for 10 years, and ironically, one of those things showing my time is Game of Thrones, because it came out the first year I was here, and I tried it, put the first episode in, just couldn't get behind it. But that being said, knowing now about Benioff and Weiss, it made sense, because I was like, well, they've been in charge of this world and things, but I guess they also had the books of George R.R. Martin, I'm butchering the name, but to kind of guide kind of thing. Who would I want? I don't know. You know what I do want, which I think they are doing, which I felt like maybe hurt the sequel trilogy just slightly. Have it all planned.
Yep.
You know, like you said, kind of like we were saying earlier, with the prequels, George Lucas, I think, had at least the prequels planned. We will leave the arguing about the original trilogy aside, but it definitely seemed like he had a to B to C for the prequels, and that worked, because at least everything tied.
Right.
Unfortunately, with the sequel trilogy, I don't know. I go back and forth in my own personal head of, was it planned? Was it not? I definitely think things had to be planned, but I do think they were also trying a different approach. So for me, I don't have a director in mind for this, but I was like, let's have it mapped out, because the Marvel model works. And I wonder if that's why they brought Kevin Feige on as well. I know some people, and maybe even you guys, have said he's just doing one film, blah, blah, blah. But I have a feeling they're like, okay, we're in a new era now. You have worked now in 10, 12 years on a cinematic universe that, you know, I know some people high up and great directors poo-poo it, but nothing like it has ever been done.
Right.
And everything ties. And I mean, things are still paying off now. Like I forget what they announced at D23, that like the tattoos have been, it's like the 7 rings or whatever. They've been in the films since like Iron Man 2. I mean, it's insane.
No, without question. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's insane, the detail. So I think they're kind of going, hey, Kevin, you're kind of part of the family. Like, we're wanting to do this. What do you suggest? And yeah, that's all I want, is just have a plan. And actually, it's funny, it came to me as you were talking, having it kick off with a game. You know, if you would have said that 10, 12 years, I've been like, really? But now with the detail that kind of like, look at, I haven't even played it yet, but Jedi Fallen Order, the game design and the world building and everything that kind of happens with a game nowadays with these AAA titles, actually, it kind of makes sense, because then you have a visual representation and kind of go, oh, that's that. And I mean, heck, it was even brought up, I think, in Resistance Reborn. And that's the like first level with where we saw like the trailers with the big Sarlacc pit looking thing. It's really killing me. I don't know the name of the planet, but it's already happening. It's already starting. So let's just keep going with it. That was a very long-winded answer to your question.
No,
but
you're right. I think you're right. I mean, I almost forgot that Fallen Order wasn't like an animated CGI movie, because I haven't played video games in a while. Like anytime I have the video game questions, I ask Lacey, because she's always in Battlefront, like fighting people online and stuff like that. But Fallen Order looks incredible. And, you know, you're right. Like 12 years ago, I would have been like, they're going to kick off a Star Wars new saga with a video game? Like, Star Wars? Are you kidding me? But it might be what like I said, what they're trying to do to attract a different type of audience and pick up the international markets, because they haven't been able to do it yet. They're relying heavily on the domestic market. Right now.
And I'm not quite good with like the whole market schemes, but I do know that's why sometimes it's a bit frustrating when people go, oh, see, it failed in Asia. Well, like you said, they also came late to the market. You can't use that as an argument.
I had a tweet. I forget what movie it was, but someone was like, oh, I can't believe the Rise of Skywalker, you know, finished second in China. Like that's proof that J.J. Abrams sucks. And I looked up The Last Jedi, because I knew all these movies don't do well over there. And it was like a private eye movie, the third sequel of some kind of B movie that beat The Last Jedi in China. I'm like, guys, like, this isn't new. Like, you're doing it for your narrative, but
exactly.
Always chase the truth. That's all I ask people. Just Just to look a little bit more. When you think you have your answer, just look a little bit more and you'll find the truth. It's there.
And this is why, like, I actually like when you do kind of like your rumor reviews or things like that, or when you guys do report things on your podcast, because I know you do that. Because, like,
thanks, yeah.
There's certain YouTubers, I wonder now what their content's going to be now that the Skywalker saga is over.
Right.
I think we all know who I'm talking about. But
Yeah.
it's kind of like, and I sometimes, I have to sometimes tell people that are not as like, and again, that microcosm when they kind of post certain websites, it's like, please don't quote this website again. We all know which ones I'm talking about, but it's just like, I swear they just throw something at a dartboard and go, yep, that's today's story. It's just like,
so I mean, yeah, without a doubt. And anytime it is something right, I'm not going to mention their website names, but sometimes they rip off other people's stories. That's happened to us. But you know, for me, I do like I do those rumor and theory review videos. Honestly, for like when I think about the Hoey family dinners when I go to my mom's house and stuff, and they're like, I heard that George Lucas came back and he rewrote everything. I'm like, so it's like it's for everyone's family's dinners to hopefully like just bring the truth out so that we're not having these ridiculous theories, because being online enough and creating your own theories and all that stuff is enough as it is, let alone all the misinformation out there. I mean, I feel like misinformation is causing a big part of the fandom issues out there.
I would agree with that, actually. And it gets very frustrating. And sometimes as being someone who's kind of in the industry, like having to defend why The Lion King is not an animated film, but it's just... Oh,
right. I can't even imagine. Yeah. Oh, jeez.
And doing that with industry colleagues that, you know, who that's just like... No, it's something called virtual production.
Right.
But, you know, it's so tricky. But I'm very excited, but I just it's tricky because, like, obviously as, you know, content creators, it's like, okay, right. What do we got coming up? Right.
Yeah.
So kind of now we're kind of been talking about like the future of Star Wars and things. What would you want to see happen?
I am hesitant about going backwards because there's always a loose end game where, you know, like if they have some kind of not ghostly villain, but some all-powerful immortal villain, well, you know, they're not around during the prequel era, so you know that they're going to lose at some point and the Jedi are still around, so that drama isn't there. So that concerns me a little bit, though. I still enjoyed the prequels, even though we knew what the end game was. And
Thank you.
Right. Like, it was more of like, and I joke about this on our Attack of the Clones commentary. I'm like, when I was watching Attack of the Clones the first time, I was like, is he going to get his arm cut off in this movie? Like, is he going to get scarred in this movie? Like, when is he going to start getting Vadery? And I like that journey of it. So I don't necessarily need to be ahead of everything, and we can go back. But my concerns are, you know, do they have to tie this in? Do they need to bring Yoda in? Is it going to go back to a CGI Yoda? Are they going to go completely new? So I do trust what they're going to do. What you said, though, is spot on. Planning it out, I think, is the way to go. And I think they're going to learn that mistake from the sequel trilogy. Now, while I love the sequel trilogy very much, they did do quite a bit of a pass the baton. I know without question, J.J. Abrams probably had something else in mind for Snoke, probably something else in mind for Rey originally. And kind of reacted based on Ryan's choices, which I still loved. I'm a rare breed who loves all the movies in the sequel trilogy. You too? Yeah. So we stand proud. But yeah, I would like to see other stuff. I would like to, because I don't think Rian Johnson's going to be involved with this, if it's true, this High Republic era. Though I do like the idea of this Old Republic thing that isn't called, like, it's not Knights of the Old Republic, because, you know, those fans will go crazy and they'll say that's not my Knights of the Old Republic and that sort of thing. So I like going back. That's cool. It concerns me. I have my concerns a little bit, but I also would like them maybe go forward, not necessarily with Rey and company, but blank canvas it. It's still a long time ago, but it's after the Skywalkers. No baggage, none of that. We all start on page 1. No ties to anything we've seen. That way, no one could like lay ownership. Like, that's my era. That's my character. That's this. And because the galaxy, while it is, you know, tight with the Skywalker saga, it's vast. So you can tell us new stories with new people beyond Rey and such. So going forward, that would be interesting to me too. And then what else do I want? I would honestly, I just love to see follow up to Solo on Disney Plus. That'd be cool.
Oh god, yeah. I was waiting to kind of get into that because you were saying such great stuff earlier, but I really think they're gonna miss a trick now if they don't. Because let's be honest, like, I don't know how long Disney Plus was in the works. Obviously, these things don't just kind of appear overnight, kind of thing. But like, for things like they could take greater risks on Disney Plus because it's a different kind of market kind of thing. And you have that long form storytelling. And I really think like you said, let's get a few episodes. Like, I want to know what happens with Emphasis. And the thing is, the actors are still quite young. Jonas is so, oh God, give me just so much more of Jonas.
Yes.
He's so in it, man. I love him. Love him. He really is, kind of thing. And I'll say a bit of a hot take. I think I liked what Rian Johnson did with Star Wars. However, I completely respect people don't like how he treated pre-existing characters. Fine. So I think give him, which if it's still happening, he's the future films that are post Rise of Skywalker, because he did add an interesting intellectual storytelling kind of thing to it that I get. That's why, and I latched on to that, and I get why that's why some people now kind of struggle, because it was a completely different direction. I think he would have been great with dealing with characters that weren't pre-established. Because I mean, look at Knives Out. Knives Out he's nominated for writing. Yeah. Like original screenplay. So and I loved Looper. I haven't seen Brick, but you know what I mean? Like he's got something there. So I mean, let him do his own kind of development kind of thing. But it's very tricky because I always thought about this randomly as I'm cycling into London. You were absolutely right. The prequels, I don't think there was a lot of energy because there was nothing at stake. You knew the end game. That's why I was so happy when you said that. I was like, yes, I'm not the only one. I think what made the sequel trilogy so exciting but also divisive is we didn't know the end. We're like, it could go anywhere. But at least we had common threads that made it Star Wars. What kind of makes me nervous about anything future or in the past, they're gonna have to kind of go, hey, do you remember this? Because otherwise, what makes it Star Wars? Blasters, lightsabers, what makes that more like Jupiter Ascending or something? So it's a very interesting
It is.
time.
It is. And what you said about Rian Johnson, I agree with. Give him the clay without the hardened figures. Let him mold these new characters, because we've seen him, like you just said, organically create these characters, and he can do it with a lot of characters. He can make a dozen new characters work in his playground. If he does that from scratch in Star Wars, I even think the people who didn't like The Last Jedi may give him a shot, because it's not my Luke or my this.
Exactly.
My Akbar, which who cares? Akbar. Well, Lacey's gonna get mad at me for that one, but
side note, I didn't realize Nien Nunb died.
Gone.
I didn't realize that until someone tweeted it. I was like, wait, what?
But you know what though, Shannon, honestly, wouldn't you rather have Nien Nunb die in battle, finally defeating Palpatine, as opposed to like, and then 20 years later he died slipping and falling down a flight of stairs in a comic book? Like, I mean, they had to die sometime, especially the characters that have been around so long. So, I mean, I'm okay with all that.
Yeah, but I was just like, oh, I did not get that.
I did not until my fourth viewing, I think. I finally saw him in the...
Because, he's in one of the ships that you see, like, when he does the big lightning, which nominated for sound design. Hey, that is a pretty cool... Even though I was like, that's a bit fantastical, but hey-ho, that sound design was...
I think... was he in the Tantive 4? Or...
I think so.
Yeah, did they blow that thing up, too?
Well, if he's gone, then I guess
Leia's gone. Get rid of her ship too. No one else flying it. Let's go. Gone.
Done.
So
Dusted.
I'm open to whatever they want to do. I think they're going to learn lessons, like we were saying about connecting the stories more and having more of a blueprint set up for us. But it's exciting times, because I can't imagine fandom getting more contentious with newer stuff. And I feel like that's the beat that has been the theme of our episode here, where it's like the claiming of this was my Star Wars and stuff like that, which I get that, because if people grew up when they were 6 years old watching Star Wars and they feel if it leaves me, then what am I worth? Like, there's definitely psychological stuff there that's real, and I understand it. Like, Star Wars left me, and I get how those people feel, but now everyone's starting over. So whether you're 60 or you're 6, we're all getting new Star Wars, and it could have been over in 2005. I'm glad that you're here. I'm here. We're doing Star Wars podcasting, which may not be a thing if Star Wars ended 14 years ago.
Oh, I know,
15
right?
15 years ago. So.
Oh, don't. Oh,
so
Lord.
yeah, tell me about it. I'm 1982, so I get it. But the fact that we're here, and I think most people outside of social media bubbles love Star Wars. Like, you got 86% from the Rise of Skywalker from fans on Rotten Tomatoes. I think Star Wars is going to be in a good place. So I'm excited. Yeah. It feels fresh. Like, we turned the calendar, we said goodbye to the Skywalkers, we respected that, but now it's all right. Let's crack our knuckles and let's see what else is out there.
Absolutely. So I'm very excited. I guess let's bring on Obi-Wan and Mandalorian too.
Yes.
I just saw this, and I don't know how true it is, but I saw that it was like a cast list. And like there was something where it's like showed like the chick who played Iden Versio and the guy who played Shriv and things like that. I don't know.
Mando?
I don't know. I really need to look into it, but I'm just kind of putting that in your radar, kind of thing, to see like what's going on. That could have been
DM me.
No. Yeah, exactly. That kind of thing. But great. Well, with that, I could chat for hours. But
me too. Totally.
Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter. At Johnny Hoey, and at the Resistance Broadcast account at RBATSWNN. And you can find me on StarWarsNewsNet.com, writing and editing every week. And the Resistance Broadcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, all those, wherever you can find a podcast, I guess. Podbean, Google Play. People are always like, where are you guys? I'm like, I don't know. Go find it.
It's amazing the amount of websites now.
We do Patreon stuff too. Patreon.com/Resistance Broadcast. A lot of extra stuff, and Lacey just kills it running that page over there. And James, which people don't know about. I got to give both them shout outs, because Lacey and James, it's amazing how hard they work. James designing all the t-shirts, doing all our graphics and everything behind the scenes, and editing. He edits all our episodes, and then Lacey runs our Patreon page and just crushes that. And you see how much of a superstar she is on Twitter. She'll hate me for saying that, but they're the best too. So that's me.
Awesome. And you can find me on Twitter at From Galaxy's Edge, and I also do game streams on Twitch and sometimes YouTube. That will be Shenanigan with an EN at the end _plays, and on YouTube I'm just Shannon Moran. I really should get it to where all my stuff is the same, but I do also other content, so I struggle. I'm like, I don't know what it is. So, well, thank you so much for taking time out of your evening and everything and coming
Shannon,
on.
This was so much fun. Thank you. I smiled pretty much the whole hour. This was a good time. Looking back, looking forward, Star Wars is fun when you let it, right? So
absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me on. I had a blast.
Great. And thank you guys for having a listen or having a watch. And we will see you guys next time.